And so at the beginning of my junior year, my coach came to me and basically said, hey, Ink, man, you're projected draft pick. Like NFL teams scouting you, they love you. All you got to do is do what you've been doing and you'll get a shot. You'll be an automatic multimillionaire. You could take care of your family. And I was like, awesome, man. And so coming into my junior year, I'm thinking all I have to do is do what I've been doing. I just got to play football. That's easy, right? And I come out the first game we play against California Bears. I execute. I have a great game. We get the victory. And we're going into the second game against Air Force. Tough group, disciplined group. Fourth quarter rolls around, 2 minutes left. And so usually in 2 minutes, the game is basically about to be over. And so we're thinking we make a couple of more stops. I'm thinking if I get the opportunity to hit a guy in the game, make him fumble, get ready for Florida the next week. And so the quarterback drops back, throws it to a guy, he catches it, and I go to make the tackle. That's supposed to end the game. And as soon as I hit him, right, something different happened that never happened to me before in my life, right? My body goes completely limp. I fall to the ground, I black out. I just had my anniversary not long ago, September 9th. But it's a special day for me, right? Reflective day. But that exact day, September 9th, 2006, it was a day that, I did everything the way I always did it, right? I prepared for the game the same way. I listened to the same music. My pregame routine and ritual was the same. And in that game, when I went to make that tackle, I went at it the way that I always went at a tackle. But for some strange reason, when I hit him, every breath in my body left, right? My body went completely limp, fell to the ground, blacked out, right? When I came to, my teammates were standing over me like, Ink, get up, let's rock. I was like, I can't, right? I can't move. There was a shot going through my body. I couldn't feel anything. But me thinking, it's just a stinger, shoulder injury, nothing too serious, right? And when they get me over to the hospital and they run their test, and then they bring me back into a room, and my mother had just left the room, kissing, praying, kissed me on my head, praying, and saying, Ink, you'll be fine, right? And when she walks out, the doctor runs in and says, guys, we got to rush this kid back to emergency surgery. He's about to die. And I remember thinking, like, man, like, what? Right? I'm saying to him, like, you can't use another word? Like, man, it's like, use a synonym. Like, I'm thinking he's joking. Right? And he's like, no, man, you ruptured your subclavian artery in your chest. You're bleeding internally. I got to rush you back, take the main vein out of your left leg, plug it into your chest in order to save your life. He said, I guarantee you, you won't be here in the morning. He said, you're bleeding internally. And so the next morning I woke up, I was grateful that I was still alive, right? And I think because of the seriousness of the situation, right? It made me view football in a micro way in terms of I love the game, right? It hurt that my career ended, right? It hurt it, right? But I was there. My life was spared. Like if they didn't catch that my artery had busted and I was bleeding internally, I could have went to sleep that night and the next morning, the title on the newspaper would have been different. It wouldn't have been Inky Johnson suffered possibly career-ending injury. It'd have been Inky Johnson lost his life last night from a tackle made in the game. And so it made me view it differently, even though I had a long road of rehabilitation for my arm ahead of me. My grandmother used to say something to me all the time, and I think it's so true. And she would say to me, Inky, either somebody is in the midst of adversity or just came out of adversity, or it won't be long before they head into adversity. So you need to be prepared either way. And so we all go through adversity, opposition. I think that's the thing that makes us all in common as people, right? No matter if you're from London, Atlanta, Florida, California, New York, like we're all going to go through something at some point or phase in our life, right? And as cliche as it sounds, when a quote says, it's never about what happens to you, it's about how you respond to it. That's very true, right? But in the same sense, I think what's most important is when we go through something, what's the perspective that we have of it, right? Because for most people, when you go through something, the person's natural perspective is, okay, what did I lose, right? What happened to me? Like I took a loss, right? People never look at it and say, okay, man, tell me what did you gain, right? Even though I know it hurt, You didn't want to go through it. But look at it in a way to where you can say, what's the lesson in this, right? What would you say life is trying to teach you from dealing with this? And so when I went through it, my perspective was, okay, what can I extract from it to apply to other areas and aspects of my life that I feel can help other people? And I firmly believe the quicker you can shift your perspective from yourself to others when you're in the midst of adversity, the quicker you'll get through it, right? Martin Luther King has a quote that says, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing to help other people? Now, I'm not telling you to not acknowledge your pain. I'm not saying that. I'm not telling you not to say, man, I'm going through this and it's hard. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when you go through it, look at it, step back from the picture and say, okay, I'm dealing with this. 9 out of 10 times, there's somebody else that's either dealt with it or they're going to deal with something similar to this. And if I deal with it in the right way, I can use it to add value to lives of other people. The funny thing was, I had never heard of the injury that I suffered. Never heard of it. When I went through it, I met probably 10 guys years after that have been going through it, that I could talk to at different stages and phases in the process and say, hey man, Ink, how did you deal with this? How did you deal with this? When they told you this, how did you accept that, right? How did you process that? And I was like, bingo, this is how I got through it. This is how I dealt with it, right? But I had to shift my perspective from why me to why not me. I think we help people in different ways, right? It's almost like leadership, right? You find some leaders that are vocal, right? That can talk. You find other leaders that lead by example. They're not big talkers, right? They're just the guys you watch. They're going to do their thing, and you can point to them and say, hey man, you see the way that guy works and does his thing, follow him. And I think the same for opposition and adversity. You find some people, they can work their way through it, and then they can speak about it and tell people. You got others that deal with it and they can work their way through it, and you almost have to pry it out of them. And so it's like, for me with speaking, I never wanted to speak. Never had any interest in it, right? Never said, man, I want to go across the country, share my story. I wasn't interested. I wanted to coach. When that fell through, I wanted to work at a rec center in my neighborhood, create leadership curriculums for the kids, and just give back to them. And one day I was talking with my buddy, and he just made me realize, like, what you went through just wasn't for you, right? Basically, like I was being selfish about my situation and my experience, right? He was like, you're going through it, you got through it, you're dealing with it, but that's not just for you. Like when we go through a situation and circumstance, it's easy to step back and think, man, I just went through this and it's just my experience. I firmly believe when we go through things, it's for us to deal with it, get over it, and reach back over the hill to help another person. And a lot of times, like you said, when you're trying to work through it, you think, man, how can I help somebody? And I'm trying to get through it myself, right? And that's a great perspective, right? But when you get through it, right, maybe you can't help them when you're in the midst of it because you're processing it. But when you get over the hill, I think it's important and I think it's vital that you reach back over the hill and help somebody that may be going through a similar situation, and you can share your values and principles with them, because that experience that we go through and we deal with is not just for us.